So we got a bump coming up. Okay. Hold on to something. Dude, woo, get some better like grab handles. So if you've ever ridden in a Jeep, you probably have reached for something that wasn't there at some point when hitting an obstacle or just getting a little bit off camber and maybe getting sketched out a little bit about what's going to happen next. Of course, you should always be wearing a seatbelt, but it is incredibly nice to have something to grab onto that is not going to compromise your fingers or your grip. So you see all the time those videos that are super cringy where somebody reaches up to the roof as the thing's rolling, or onto the roll cage if it's a Wrangler, and yeah, just you don't want to lose fingers. So I've had these for a while now. I have not had a chance to put them on, but these are some grab handles made by Trailhead Off-Road, and they mount to your A-pillar. Super simple installation. I'm going to show you how to do it. Another motivator for me putting these on is that I've been shooting a lot more video on the trail, and one of the things I would like to be able to do is to mount a camera to the interior somewhere, that it's kind of quick and easy to grab, and that I can kind of look over and talk to it. So the solution I have for that, which I think should work really well with these, is this magic arm that just kind of clamps onto stuff. So that'll kind of mount up in here on the A-pillar, obviously, and I can just use that arm then to adjust where the camera is pointed and how it's set and all that. I think it's going to be nice getting in and out. I'm not that tall of a Jeep, but a lot of times too when you're off-road, you're parked over some ground that's a little bit further below you than if you're in a parking lot at the mall. And it's nice to just have that extra security, something to grab onto that isn't, a moving door or something that might fall off, like a door handle. I don't know. So yeah, let's get into the install. I'll show you what you get in the kit and where they go and kind of how to lay it out, make sure you get it right, and how they perform once they're done. So this is everything you should have in your kit from Trailhead Off-Road. Obviously 2 handles, driver and passenger, 4 nut certs, which we're going to drill and install into the A-pillar, and then 4 bolts. These are nice panhead Allen bolts that sit pretty nice and flush in here. So these just kind of pry off with your fingers. And oops, there's a Torx bit in there. I believe it's a T25 Torx that we'll use to blast that off of there. From there, now everything's just clips. This can be held down out of the way with plenty of room to access what you need to access. The first thing we're shooting for here is right below this clip, and it's this hole here. My clip here is broken off, so I'm going to try to remove that so it's not in my way. And then we're going to drill this out. The instructions say you can use either a 3/8 or 27/64 drill bit, which they're a good bit different in size here. So I'm guessing the 27/64 is going to be a lot looser on the nut cert, and 3/8, maybe we can tap it in there decently. I'm going to drill 3/8 first, and we'll see how the nut cert fits in there then. All right, I want to take that as easy as possible so that when you punch to the other side, you don't end up damaging anything that you're going to see from the outside. But that's going to be my 3/8 hole. And we'll see what a riv nut or nut cert looks like in that hole now. Oh yeah, that's way too tight. I mean, you could probably ream that out if you needed to, if all you have is a 3/8 drill bit. But honestly, I'm just using Harbor Freight, like the $15 set that's incremented by 64ths up to a 1/2 inch in total size. So 27/64 drill bit should not be a difficult one to come by. Get one, and I'll show you what that looks like next. Okay, I made a much cleaner hole for starters, and it's still tight, which is what you want. Like I said, you're not gonna get the riv nut to actually compress if this hole isn't tight to start out with. I'm starting out with 3 nuts on this bolt here and just threading that on. Now I don't want to stretch the riv nut the wrong way, so I'm just going to gently tap this into place here. As you can see there, nice and flush. And we want to thread that in. Got a 5/8 wrench. Oof. So you should feel kind of a loose spot towards the very end of that, and then it just goes fully tight. And you feel like you'd strip it out if you go any further. So don't go that far. And mushy. Not real happy with how that turned out. Kind of deformed, but that should work. I'm going to tighten that down. I'm using a 5mm Allen here. Make sure that that's exactly where you want it to be, and then you can either use a drift punch or a Sharpie, mark where the other one's going to go, and go ahead and do the other nutsert. Remove this, of course. If you did get out a 3/8 drill bit, that fits cleanly through the hole that's on here. So another option that you could use for installing is to switch to your 3/8 drill bit, and then just gently reach through here and drill. I've made a nice mark and indent where I can now confidently drill with my larger drill bit. We'll repeat the process for the next riv nut or nutsert. I use those interchangeably. Radiator, same thing. You do need to make sure that you're pushing pressure onto the ratchet as you do this, so that that riv nut collar seats flush to the body. All right. See if I'm any happier with how this one looks. That's how it should look. I think I just might have given that one crank too many last time. That one is absolutely beautiful. Let's make sure this lines up. Loosen this top one a little. And the hole should line up perfectly. Of course it fucking doesn't. One cool thing about riv nuts is if they don't align properly, it doesn't necessarily mean that your hole was drilled crooked. The threads could be a little bit crooked in there. Just kind of the nature of the way that they seat. And with this handle here, you can take that and probably see the body flexing as I do that. I don't want to do it too hard, but that should sort of self-adjust a little bit there. And yeah, now I can thread both of these in nicely. So probably my hole was exactly where I wanted it, but the threads inside of that riv nut were just a little bit cockeyed. All right, those are cranked down tight, and yeah, Wow. You wouldn't think it'd be that sturdy just going into sheet metal, but your A-pillar does need to be strong, so that's quite impressive how nice and tight of a grab that is. Next step, before doing the other side now, I'm going to drill through this, and I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bit for that just so that I've got plenty of extra play in the plastic there. This will cover it. Well, this clip had broken on mine, and the way that it goes in there is exactly like this, just kind of in the center of that hole. So with that all the way in there, kind of centered up on that, you can really see where that falls to the rib nut. So I'm just going to measure kind of from the edge. Well, I'll measure from this where the molding would have gone in there. It's like 5/8 of an inch there. Looking at the back side here with the clip, measured over 5/8. There's actually a good bit of space between the plastic and the body, so probably going to want to use the nut behind it here, and that's going to be a little bit of a pain. You can see what I did to keep the nuts in place on the backing here. So I'm going to put the plastic back up and where it belongs, and now those nuts should be close to where they need to be as a backing to keep this plastic from cracking as I tighten down the handle. Make sure the plastics are lined up where you want them on the outside. You kind of use your headliner as a guide up here to tell where that panel was. Blindly threading into these rib nuts is a little bit challenging. Looks like my nut might not be there anymore. Okay. There's final installation. Really, really sturdy. Compresses the plastic in there and hopefully keeps it from rattling, but it's not so tight that it cracked anything with the nuts behind it. Those are definitely key. And let's see what it looks like with my camera rig clipped onto it. So if you're not familiar with these magic arms, they're really just a bunch of knurled fittings with knobs that tighten everything down, and then it also kind of pulls this socket tight as everything gets tightened down. If anything, it might vibrate too much just with this being a rubber grip here. So let's see, I really crank down on that, it'd probably be okay. And just that little bit of shock absorption might be perfect. We'll find out when I put a camera on it. The idea is I can kind of swivel this thing around where I want it, tighten it down, and then have my camera kind of moving with the body of the Jeep. One of my feelings with these handles is that they were really going to change the way you get in and out of the Jeep, and I'm not sure which hand I'm going to kind of favor there to grab that. I obviously don't get into the passenger side of my own Jeep all that often, but I've got the step rail, rock rails on here, and I think it's probably going to be left hand, right foot, and to just kind of hoist yourself into the Jeep. And likewise getting out, and then maybe left foot, left hand, and just brace yourself getting out of the Jeep then too.